It's Friday. We were busy. The team was busy. We're sorry, but we're on Friday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody around the world joining us today for episode 8 of Decrypted. Guys, we've been going for like 2 months now. How crazy is that?
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. It's like, and hey, like props, we had 390,000 views last week. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We love, like I said, this is the highlight of my week every week. Stan and I and Ben can just come and just like jam. It's a jam session.
It's so fun, man. I enjoy it, and I learn a lot as well, which is nice. Like it's a great environment where we can kind of shoot the shit, we can talk, we can laugh, but also we can learn. Stan, how you doing?
Yeah, actually, I'm really excited to show something really interesting today. Maybe I just jump into it immediately. I don't know. Should I give any type of
no, give it. We gotta make the people wait a little.
Yeah, let's
build a little tension. We gotta build a little
let's build. Yeah, okay.
Retention is very important.
It's important. It's something.
Let me give you a little tee up, okay? Which, hey, by the way, I have to say, when I say this is the favorite part of my week, I'm thinking to myself, like, look at these people. They just get to do this for a living. These people that are streamers, like, it's pretty fun. It's hard. It's hard presenting when you have to spend all this time building presentations and slide decks and like 20 minutes on stage. Like that's kind of nerve wracking because you have to like really deliver. But when you're talking live, it's just really fun. And I think that's when the good ideas come out too. It's less scripted.
100%. Some would say it's decrypted.
Okay, so I gotta say, Stan. So X402 came out a while ago. The Scale team's been all over it. We're working on it. And the cool thing about it is we built Scale, and Stan, we've talked about this before, but Stan and I, like when we first were meeting and talking, he's like, oh, and someday AI will be doing all, like utilizing the blockchain, making payments on people's behalf. And people are like, is this guy crazy? What are you talking about? That's not going to happen. And I worked in AI for a decade. I was like, yes, Stan, you're right. That's the future. And so when we designed Scale, we didn't design it to just support like a DeFi ecosystem. We built it to support, Cloudflare has 46 million transactions a second that they run right now to validate internet usage for people visiting websites. Okay. Imagine if you have X amount of those are bots and you want to like charge them micropayments to, essentially like take the content. Well, you can't do that on any existing system today other than Scale because Scale can grow linearly. Now, the other piece of this that's cool is X402 is just a protocol. How do you use it? Scale's a blockchain. There's a missing gap, right, Stan?
Yeah.
And that's machine bits. So that's your tee up. It's a tee up.
Yeah. So I have a slide, one really important slide, because people asking question, what is machine pay? And before presenting this slide, I can explain more like the idea at the level of just like a pitch. And basically, the idea is that in the future, what we need to understand is that how life is going to happen in the future. And so there will be enterprises, consumers, AI agents, employees, right? So that is like very, very basic stuff. And so what we need to understand is that how this entire system works. And we what we need to do is sort of build like a universal glue, in a sense like Salesforce. When you ask a question of what is Salesforce, actually it's many things, but in general, if you need anything about like sales, if your enterprise needs like automating sales, providing nice software for sales, then you get Salesforce. But actually does lots of things necessarily because enterprises are big, lots of people, lots of departments. Then the value is actually in building this big thing. So ideally, like machine pay is that like just if say at some point Coinbase wants to collaborate with Netflix to sell movies like on using X402, ideally Netflix says something like, oh, but how we do it, it's complex, we have so many movies, our enterprise is so complex. And Coinbase basically points to machine pay and say, okay, here's the thing, just use the thing. So basically, the idea is just whatever it's needed, you need to build, and then just it's going to be machine pay plus scale chains, because scale chains are like where the thing runs. But then you need to have the glue, also the software. You need to have the UI, right? You need to have something for people to use. So having said this, so let me actually present this slide, and
God, this is broken.
so okay, here it is. Now, guys, do you see the slide? Let me.
It's it's showing up. There we go.
Yeah. So that's the best I think like SteamYard can do. So hopefully you can read it. But so basically, it's kind of a complex. I'm going to go over it, but it's necessarily complex because if you look here on the left, you have consumers, right? You have people, basically. People are going to use AI and just buy things on internet using X402. And then you have AI agents. And also, that these consumers will use. So this is kind of outside of enterprise. It's just the humans, just the regular consumers, plus their AI agents. And then you have the enterprise. You have corporate network. So ideally, machine pay is just the central piece of software, the gateway, the payment gateway, very much like Salesforce for sales. For X402, you have the software. And then you see that actually it's pretty complex, and I'll explain why at the moment. The reason for this is because pretty much any enterprise will both buy and sell.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like Netflix, you'll be selling your movies using X402 to consumers. But at the same time, you will be buying some AI services from some AI company. So everyone will actually be both buyer and seller, which means that if you look at the corporate level, there's usually like a department of procurement, and you have department of sales. You have different organizations. And then if you're looking on procurement, almost immediately you ask the question, okay, you have these employees inside enterprise, right? And they want to use AI resources, but you need to set some policies. Like you cannot allow any particular employee to use unlimited amount of resources, because then you pay money, right? So then there has to be a policy and budgeting. If I'm working at a particular enterprise, I need to be able to use through X402 AI services, but I also need to have quotas, and like my manager should be able to see how much I'm using. So with enterprise, all of the things actually now becoming really, really complex. So the machine pay, the gateway, the software, if I am Netflix, on one hand, I run the software and I can easily connect it on the back end to everything I want to sell. I might want to sell AI services like ChatGPT. I might just want to sell like literally like apples or some products that I'm going to ship. I may also want to sell some data. So whatever it is, I should be able to just to take whatever this stuff is and just connect it to machine pay. And then machine pay is just this magic. It's kind of like a paywall, a magic gateway. They just you run, and it actually starts selling my stuff. And then it has UI, it has reports, lots of like big enterprise stuff. But on the other hand, the same machine pay also needs to manage my employees and how they buy from some other machine pay gateway services. So you have this, like if you have two enterprises here, you see this line, this yellow line, that literally these things will need to interact, because the one machine pay gateway may actually be a wallet, the client, the user of the another. So let's say I work at Netflix and I want to use AI. I'm actually through machine pay inside Netflix. I'm saying, okay, I want to use this particular AI service. So it's me here. I'm the employee. I go here, and then it goes to say OpenAI. And then the thing pays to this thing, and then it buys the product or the service, whatever. So you have all of these combinations essentially that the software needs to manage. But the basic is two basic functions. First of all, it's a gateway that you run the software, and whatever you have, you connect it on the back end and start selling it. But also, it's like enterprise wallet. You put money into it, and then you also put for every employee in your organization, you put how the policy, how much money this particular employee can spend, and on which service. And then there will be enforcement. So the employees, in this case, that's really key. It makes really simple for them because they won't have the wallet. They won't have the MetaMask. Everything will be here in the gateway. And as an employee, things will actually look pretty transparent for you. You will access this AI service. You will never even know about X402 because when you go from this, from yourself to machine pay and to another machine pay, and you go to buy the AI service, it will also everything will happen behind the scenes for you. So you will actually access this AI service as if there's no payment. The payment will just happen, but then you'll have the quota. So at some point, if you actually exceed the quota that your manager assigned, then you won't be able to use the service until the manager actually changes things. So this is pretty much the simplification stuff, because as you see in this picture, everything is concentrated in these machine pay gateways, and employees, consumers, they just use things. It's kind of you provide something really simple. So that's kind of the idea that we have, and we're really working really hard on implementing this idea. So the first thing is actually the selling part, and we are almost very close to releasing it. We are very close to releasing the software where I have my enterprise, and inside my enterprise, I have a file. I want to sell a movie, or I want to sell a document, like I'm a New York Times. So I basically connected this gateway to whatever resource I have, and then magically I just set the price, and it just magically starts selling it. So that's kind of the grand vision behind machine pay. And as you guys see, actually it looks simple, but if it's actually used by enterprises, there are many things which actually need to be lots of features potentially. Also, you think about things like accounting, for instance, right? If it spends money, or if it actually earns money, it needs to be connected and push information into enterprise accounting systems. It needs to be able to push information into enterprise analytics systems like big data, all of this stuff. So essentially, once you start integrating it, then it becomes really, really lots and lots of features. But ideally, you have the thing, and then if you're a small business, then ideally you put a document on Google Drive or on GitHub, and you just run the thing, and it magically just starts selling it. And then you can scale it up to a very large business where you're Netflix, and then you want to sell millions of movies. And then what you will need, one single gateway won't be enough. So then you also will have this question about clustering of the things, because if you want to sell 1 million movies, probably one single machine pay instance won't be able to sell everything, right? So you see this feature after feature after feature. You see you have things like denial of service protection, right? If you're selling your movies, you don't want someone attack you and basically disable your service, or things like high availability, right? If one machine pay gateway crashes, there has to be another one on standby and kind of start working. So you see many things like that essentially. But what we want to do is actually start from a minimum viable product. We want all of the features to be there immediately, and then ideally release it on GitHub. People start using it. And ideally, we actually see what people want, what they ask us, and we'll keep on adding these features, and then the thing grows. The real advantage that we have is that we are so early, so we can be the market leader, we think. There's really no machine pay at the moment, so it's actually a great time to start it.
Hey, Stan, I have some questions. So, like, this is really great. Help me understand more about the corporate network connection, because I see that like you have like consumers and agents, and they're kind of going to like, let's say I'm a individual and my agent's paying for the movies on Netflix. What is a use case where there's two corporate networks? Is it like one business sharing stuff with other business and their machine-based systems are talking to like manage the payment? It's different than the consumer. Yeah, help describe that a little bit, because
that's actually a great question. And the more you think about this, there are actually some really interesting scenarios. There's actually like really interesting scenario, like this thing actually can be useful even inside of a large enterprise. Let's say you have a huge enterprise, you have like Bank of America, right? And so it's lots of locations, lots of people, lots of services, and then you have employees. And then inside of Bank of America, there will be AI services, just internal services that employees will use. But even for internal things, you will need to be able to manage resources. You can't like give like a single employee ability to like issue like million requests to your whatever internal AI. And so for this one, there's really interesting thing. You can literally use like not a fake, but a corporate internal token, which won't actually have like monetary value, but you will actually, it will be just a way for you. If you have a corporation with like 100,000 employees, it will be efficient way for you to manage access of this employees to resources and AI inside of your enterprise, and allocation of quotas and all of the things. So that's actually a really interesting possibility where basically there is this internal enterprise token. And just
Stan, I gotta like tell you a story about this.
Okay.
This is a crazy story related to internal currencies. So I was part of Good Technology, and we were acquired by Motorola. Stan actually did our cryptography certification, and then I left Motorola in 2008, and I started a company. And I started this company with a couple other guys, and it was called Incentiline. And what we had, this is right when Bitcoin, like we didn't even know what Bitcoin was at all at this point, but we had this internal currency system that we sold to enterprises to pay for internal resources where they would fight over resources. And so you had this artificial non-monetary currency. And our first customer was NASA. And we had these things, we called them NASA bucks. And the engineers could rent because everyone's like, give me the supercomputer. Compute resources were way more scarce in 2008. And they'd be fighting over these things. And then they'd have all these like negotiations. And then we did is like, we have the currency. Then they could bid on times. They're like, oh, I'll wait a week and I'll bid less and I'll save my currency. And then we did it for like all of these shared resources, like the wind tunnel, the getting people on base. And then we started doing with big companies like legal resources. But there wasn't a concept of agentic, payments, where I think it makes even more sense. But yeah, so Stan, we did this, and then the market just
that's great.
2008, and that's how I met Mike Maples. Mike was like, well, this idea,
That's an example, Jack. That's an example where there are some ideas that like people are wait, and suddenly the idea becomes really relevant. So I think that's an example, because if you think about this, this is the first time in the history of computer science when like a single call is like 10 cents. You burn 10 cents of energy. It used to be that, if you look at like Bank of America now, right, whatever, they have lots of like systems inside, but if it's not AI, you don't really have to manage it at the level of like a single call, because it's usually cheap. Like you go to some internal software and you do something. You don't burn like 10 cents of energy for a single click. So usually because of that, the problem of resource allocation exists, but it's not so critical. But if you now, let's say you just take the same Bank of America and then just, let's say they start running AI internally for whatever purpose, and suddenly every call burns 10 cents of energy. So if an employee, makes lots of calls, or if an agent, their internal agent makes lots of calls during a particular day, they can just burn lots of money. So the issue of efficient So for the total internal thing, the issue of efficient allocation of resources become critical. And I think we may actually see some really interesting things we actually don't expect, that makes maybe like inside enterprises that can be really useful. People can just run like a mock-up. I mean, don't call it mock-up, but an internal token, ERC20, which is used to efficiently allocate resources. And the same then you have two enterprises, and then they may be complex relationship. So for instance, let's say you have Bank of America, and then you have OpenAI, and they have this huge deal that they signed, this like $1 billion deal that OpenAI provides services to Bank of America, and the deal may be complex. And the quotas may be complex. So there's lots of things. That's why what you asked, Jack, this line where you have from one big enterprise to another, they actually may be like almost like the actual feature, which is going to be super important, because you will need to understand how, like, if Bank of America uses OpenAI, then Bank of America needs to quota employees and agents inside in correspondence to the agreement they have with OpenAI. And then you have all of this complexity of sales and discounts and you name it. And all of this will need to be managed. So I think we have a great opportunity where we start with something really trivial and like easy. Basically, the first version is going to be like you run it and you'll be able to like sell whatever your movies easily, like from GitHub or from Google Docs or from whatever, from your virtual machine. But then as people start using X402 more and more, I feel it will be fantastic if suddenly we see people coming with more and more feature requests. And ideally, we grow as this entire subject grows. But it's incredibly exciting. And I think that this issue of like internal currency may be actually huge because I mean, if you think about this may be even bigger than across enterprises. It may be as big because why would you care? I mean, if it's 10 cents per burn, you don't really care if this happens inside of your enterprise or outside. You need to allocate budgets anyway.
Yeah, so, and that was like our theory. We're like, hey, the way you align incentives is to give people scarce resources that they have to pay with. It's with currencies. If you don't have to pay for something, you see this in every situation in life. If something's free, like people don't appreciate it, they abuse it, they waste it. When they have to pay for things, they start like using their human brain to like figure out what to do, when and how, and what to conserve, what not to, what to do later, what to do now. And if you think about it, in like the biggest issue at these huge companies is just figuring out who gets what then, when, and then people are wasteful. And so I think you're right, especially you think about API calls for agents. Some like, whatever, I'm going to do a gazillion of them, and they just rack up however much money the company. But if they have to like start being precise about these things, and this idea, I gotta say, we were so pumped about it, but the issue was like the market just absolutely crashed in 2008. And so then what we built was this whole analytic engine behind the currency. And we're like, well, people are still spending money on sales and marketing. Let's turn it into a sales and marketing AI engine. And we got rid of the currency part. But like the currency part is the big thing. But sometimes that's how the world works. Ideas come around later, like 10, 15 years later, and
it's funny. When I was working at Red Bull, they had a similar thing, but it was actually just dollars, right? So they just used euros interconnected between all the departments, that if you wanted to like go to the video guys and say, hey, we need you for X amount, you actually had to pay the video guys, who would then take that money and then go pay the video editors. It was a very, very weird dynamic. I hope they're no longer doing it, because it makes
you think about your budget. You're like, well, do we really need this video? Because I only have this much budget. Like,
yeah. And I think another thing as well is it can help with over kind of stretching resources, right? If a team is out there trying to get 1 million things from one department, they ain't got the internal budget to do it.
Totally. And last thing I want to mention, guys, is actually, I mean, two things. One thing, one friend of mine, a really big friend, started a similar company where it was just managing access of employees inside the company to cloud APIs, because pretty much the same thing happens. People just overspend, no one controls them. And so it became like over $10 billion like company just managing efficiently cloud services that employees use. But in this case, also, there's really interesting possibility of using AI to optimize. So if you have a full picture of what's happening in your end, because this thing will have the entire information, right? Mm-hmm. What agents you're running, how much money, like even if it's mock-up money, how much resources they are spending. And then you optimize very much like there's optimization of your AWS costs. There are companies that optimize your AWS costs. Very much similar here. This thing can use AI itself to say, okay, this thing is really inefficient. This is how you make it more efficient. This is how you reroute. So there's also this really thing like what these agents are going to be like big, but humans won't be able to even like grasp what these agents are doing. So you will need AI that will actually be able to understand how much money or resources these agents are spending. So I think we have this great opportunity, and I'm gonna stop sharing, not to bore too much.
Yeah, so hey, let's like, I feel like I want to talk a little bit about the future of work and the future of like commerce. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of people tune in is that we talk about this stuff. It's like, and we're at such a weird time where we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with the world. And so when I look at this machine pay demo or like diagram, it makes me think like, how is money going to flow? So one, you're like, oh, these agents making payments, it's not that big of a deal. Andreessen Horowitz says it's a $30 trillion market, like TAM, total addressable market. Like that's huge. And what they mean, they say that because they think the world's going to shift the way, money is spent, because who's going to spend the money? What are they going to spend it on? And if you kind of think about it, like you think about like the way you pay for items, usually you pay in like bulk for most things, like even a subscription, like Netflix, right? I pay per month. And some people, everyone pays the same. Some people are just hammering the server. Some people don't use it at all. I think in the future, we're going to change to this method, both inside companies, outside companies, consumer products, enterprise products. We're going to start paying for use, because right now you can't do that when you have a 2.5% credit card fee, with some minimum. No matter what, it's always going to be $2.50 and then 2.5% as it goes up. Like, you're not going to pay per use. It's easier just to do the one thing. But when we get rid of that and payments can flow seamlessly, and I see this map of these corporations like managing their payments with each other, like I think the world's going to change dramatically, and how we buy things and how we actually implement that. We're going to have these smart agents, like our robot in our home is going to be buying stuff for us all the time and managing our subscriptions.
That'd be great, because the amount of time I run out of toilet paper.
Exactly.
I'm like, I just forgot. It's like, damn it. The robot would know.
Yeah, and one other thing, and I want to hear what you guys think here on this. Like Elon Musk said, I think yesterday or the day before, they approved like what, if he meets his goals, is I think a $1.2 trillion CEO compensation plan for Tesla. I mean, that's wild, right? Like, but the reason why they're doing that is like, he's thinking they can grow. They have to grow like 8x or something, but he thinks it's going to be robots. And guess what robots are going to do? Like robots have to pay for things. They're going to have like, they're going to get smarter and smarter, but he's thinking like, and he thinks it's going to dwarf the size of the Tesla car business and the solar business and all their other businesses. This is going to like, the robot business is going to be like way bigger. But Stan, what do you think about this? How we're like, the future, how are we going to change?
Yeah, I think, Jack, we need to take a look at which robots we already use. And we do have some robots, right? We have like, for instance, I don't know if you guys have it, but I do have this robotic vacuum cleaner.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You have it, right?
Yeah, the Roomba.
Roomba. But the problem with Roomba is that it doesn't really have AI. So it kind of pre-AI thing where it's kind of programmed this way. It doesn't really have like a neural network. And
Yeah.
so, but it's there. It's useful. Actually, my desire, the most important thing for me is robotic iron. That's why I don't wear shirts, right? If I would have a robot, I would now be really nice, like in a shirt here with a tie. But I just hate ironing.
Me too.
So, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you think about this,
here's my hack. I like when I used to be in, like when I was first graduated college, I had the sales job. I had to wear a suit and tie flying all over, and I had to wear suits all the time, and I hated ironing. And so what I started doing, I just would like get my shower cranked up, and I would just like bring my shirt in the shower with me in the steam, and it just like does the same job. Not as good, but that was always my hack. At a hotel, I'd be cranking up the steam for like 20 minutes and like keep my clothes.
yeah, it's like I think like in the US. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the US, when I lived in the US, actually, lots of people actually, there's like dry cleaning, but it's all really
Yeah, but it's and I would like eventually I just like did dry cleaning for everything.
Mhm.
But I was like a college grad. I was poor. I didn't want to spend $5 to clean a shirt. I'm like, no, I'm gonna wash it and I'm gonna like, put it in my shower to make it iron.
Let's ask Falcor. Falcor, do you actually iron anything?
No.
I mean,
I just wear t-shirts though.
Right.
I don't wear shirts or anything. I don't remember the last time I wore a shirt was at my wedding. So that was like over 2 years ago. So no. I don't even own an iron. I think the last time I needed it, I had to call my mom and say, "Hey, mom, can you bring me over an iron? I don't own one."
But actually, if we come back to more, like being a little more serious about this, if you think about this, every task is like it's on its own, in the sense that if you're like super expert in ironing, you can like spend your life ironing, and then you become the perfect ironer, whatever. You just like, but actually, you will actually learn it's pretty hard, because all the situations, you have the whatever, like you're short this way, that way. It's not so easy, but they're actually like my mom used to like iron perfectly, right? So, but it's hard. So the point I'm making is that each of these tasks is going to be like a neural network on its own, which is going to have incredible billions, trillions. If it's not just the robot that moves but the particular neural network. So when the robot is actually starting to iron, it actually uses the neural network, and this neural network is efficient. Then the value is going to be just for one, I think, $1 trillion. Because if you think about this, if you build a neural network that irons perfectly, and your robot becomes what's the call? How much the society is going to change? Or you can have like a neural network for the robot, like washing dishes.
Mm-hmm.
So each of these tasks is actually very complex. We learn as humans. We think it's easy, but it's incredibly hard, to teach robot to iron or to teach robot to cook, for instance, like a Japanese cook. So you will have another $1 trillion intellectual property value in this other neural network, which kind of folds sushi as.
Will there be a market for sharing like artificial intelligence with people and microcharging them, or is it more that these agents are going to spend money buying cleaning supplies or stuff? Like, what do you?
Yeah, what do you think, Jack? I think it's actually going to be like per transaction, because let's say you have a neural network which does perfectly basically a perfect sushi chef.
Yeah,
the best ever sushi chef has been replicated in this neural network, but maybe you don't actually do like sushi every day. But one day you actually want this perfect sushi, you basically pay for just using this neural network one single time, and suddenly it's uploaded into your robot. And for one single thing, your robot becomes like a perfect Japanese chef.
Yeah,
that's
interesting. And that shows you how this payment model grows massively. Because let me show you what I was just looking at. Let me share my screen real quick. Falker's getting.
No, we good.
Just hold on. don't show these tips again. But hold on, I don't know which monitor it's going to share.
It won't
It's not
show
giving me the
up.
option. Like, you know, why don't I just send you a link, Falcor?
Yeah.
Pull this up. That'll be better.
Yes.
All right, Ben. I'm putting it in our chat. So let's look at this. You know, I actually learned about this robot through Michael Arrington. He was the founder of TechCrunch. Arrington Capital is one of Scale's early venture backers. So Stan and I know him well. Stan and I, it's funny, like are like fans of Michael Arrington.
Yeah. That's TechCrunch. Everyone reads TechCrunch.
Yeah, it was like he was like, and then we're like, oh my god. And I was like, you know what? We're like such huge fans. And he's like, why is it that it's always a bunch of dorky tech guys like you guys that are my fans? How come I don't have like all these like models that are my, it's always guys like, like you, and what is your
that's sad.
I was like, we're your fans. Sorry. So this robot, he had this tweet, and he's like the most, like, he goes, all I know is that like when I go out and I just watch this robot clean my pool for hours, and it's the most therapeutic thing I've ever done. It's like Zen meditation watching this like robot clean the pool. But if you think about it, like in this instance, like how is this thing going to need to buy things, right? Like it has its own cleaning, it has its own mechanism to like clean the, you know, it needs chemicals, it needs to order more chlorine, it needs to order more product, it needs, you know, all sorts of things, right? Maybe it actually needs updated models or API calls to do some other thing, right? Like there's a whole economy within each robot. And this is one that just in itself is going to have to buy stuff a lot to do its job. But right now you're like, oh, let me go check the robot, and how much is that? Oh, I got to order that. And like, instead it just shows up at your house. Your other robot fills it up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think would be really cool? I know I've seen like the Roomba like lawnmowers, right? But imagine if you could have one like one of those where you could like give it a picture and it would like cut the picture into your grass. Like that'd be so cool.
Wow.
Like you could just like give it like a really stupid picture, and it will just, when it does the cuts, it will just cut it in at different lengths, so you can actually get like an imprinted picture on your lawn. That'd be so cool.
Falcor, think about misuse. You know, someone else does it. Things like someone doesn't like you, and then you wake up.
Just your front lawn, just the middle finger.
Yeah. Oh, here's some birds on my lawn. Right.
Wait, it climbs
the joke.
Okay, good. You can quit sharing it. I just thought, like, you know, it's interesting because Stan, your question, like, well, what robots do we use today? Like, I don't have one of these, but I mean, I have a feeling we're gonna all have a lot of robots, and they're not just gonna, you don't want to rely only on the off-the-shelf software. And also, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no way you could store these large language models.
Absolutely.
Have this whole robust.
Absolutely.
It's like the Matrix when Keanu, like, you know, decides to like upload something, all of a sudden he can do this, you know.
That's a huge thing, Jack. Totally. That's a really nice, actually, observation, because your robot, I mean, is just the physical. Actually, the physical thing is there, right? For Tesla robot, you know, they have everything. It can move. What remains to be solved is the software that makes the moves, the neural network. And the neural network may actually require like 1,000 servers, like 1,000 GPUs. It won't fit into the robot. So it's basically the robot communicating with the cloud. And then it's like in a sense like a mind upload, because robot is just like uses different minds, different brains, depending, and pays every time. So the brain is in the cloud, and the robot is just switching the brains. And maybe tomorrow, you know, maybe your grandma needs to have a nurse, and you pay for the nurse brain, like, or maybe there's something else. You know, someone needs to like entertain your kids, and so you have this like paying for essentially for neural networks, and the robot actually becomes like almost like multiple personalities, because every time it uses a different network and actually pays for it. So it's kind of really great. And then you have this X402. The only way it can be done using X402. So then maybe they get too excited. Maybe we just like whatever.
No, you know what? Here's the cool thing about this is like, you and I've been in tech for a long time. We've seen so many false starts, right? Where we're like, oh, like VR was a false start. We're like VR.
I loved my VR. Hey,
I think all of us like VR. Like we all have devices, right? I'm like, I got 2 of them in my room right now. I'm looking at like a Meta one and a Apple Vision one. Okay, so like, but the thing is, it didn't like take over the world. Like we assumed by now we'd all at least be like sitting, hanging out with VR, like we're in the same room, right? And it just hasn't really taken off that way. But here's the thing, like a market like this agentic payments, I think we've never been in a curve with AI. And anybody who says AI isn't taken off, they don't know how many people use AI. AI is used. And you know what? AI has the best way to like get people on board, because my dad is not technical at all. But he just through Google search, and he like goes to AI mode, and then he gets to use AI as like a passive user, and he now he knows how to use it. But so that's driving a trend that's like really changing the world. But then when you think about payments, it's like this is the new railroads. Guess who made in San Francisco? There's the name like there's Huntington, Stanford, Fairmont, and I forgot the other one. There's like 4, the big 4. They were the richest people in California. Why? Because they own the railroads. They built the railroad lines. These are the new railroad lines, the payment rails, but you can't use the current ones. It's like, you couldn't have a railroad couldn't ride on a horse trail. It needed a railroad. A agentic payment can't go on an API-based, Visa payment rail and, go through traditional. It needs different rails, different calls, different infrastructure around it and tools, and kind of that's why there's such a race. And I don't think this is going to be a false start. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people, and it's going to happen fast. That's my prediction.
That's also a prediction, Jack. I'm actually really optimistic, and usually, also for consumers, only can learn like something. You cannot push too much innovation on consumers, and it's like a single year.
Yeah.
But now, like we have AI already, it has been pretty like to some degree maturing. But payments, like AI payments, seems to be like the next logical thing. So it's just like we discussed yesterday, Jack. We don't know how fast is it. Like maybe, but we almost for sure it's going to be real business. And then, and for us being like a tiny startup, I think we just start and make it like super simple and listen to what customers are telling us, and then kind of wait patiently, but maybe impatiently. Maybe that we actually like it may go like hockey stick, and actually like going already, right? If you look at like how many payments you have on base, like for X402, you see like this huge momentum and like people like jumping. So
yeah, it's exciting. It is exciting.
X402, man, it's still mind-blowing to me that like 3, 4, 5 months ago, Sawyer sent me this message and I was like, yeah, cool, whatever, I don't care. And like now it's just the biggest thing around. It's crazy. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I showed that there was 24,000 posts about X402, and now we're sitting at millions. And it's like this interesting thing is for you actually, Falkor. Is it like seems like Gen Zers like numbers, because I mean people don't really like come up with like a nice name for it, like Apple computer or like Macintosh. Like older generations, you would never have like X402. People would come up with like a nice name, but now it seems like the Generation Z. Arguably, ChatGPT is also kind of a weird name. ChatGPT. Now you have X402, and people kind of like this, like number brands.
I got beers last week with the guy who came up with that, with X402, and helped write the initial white paper. And he was telling us about it. They're like, yeah, we're trying to figure out what to call it, and then we're like, it's 402, but it's like X4. Okay, like it's just. Like you're right. People just they like the numbers. It's like it means something, and it's like a letter, and like it's not like Sizzle Pay or something. Yeah,
like, it's not like like Visa or MasterCard. It's
yeah. As a creative, I'm not the biggest fan. All right, I'll put that out there. I do like a little bit of creativity in it, but I feel like the other thing is, in today's day and age, everybody kind of tries to present something and put a twist on something, and you don't actually know what, like, time is valuable, right? You don't want to go and put your time into something and it turn out to not actually be the thing. So, just call it what it is on the tin. X402. It is what it is.
I always think so. Like, I'm from Nebraska, and in America, people have all these they have a brand identity around their area code for the phone number. Like, people are like talking about Oakland or San Francisco, like 415. I'm from the four, or like in LA, like you hear it even in like rap songs and stuff talking about these kind of famous, and Nebraska's is 402. Wow. I was like 402. Like I used to have a 402 number. I'm like a 402. People have like 402 on like bumper stickers and stuff. They
should buy these bumper stickers. NFTs, they may go up in price.
Yeah. Hey, so Falkor, I got something really interesting. Let's talk about the market. People really like talking about our takes on that. Let's pull up. Can you pull up the Zcash chart?
Yes.
On CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing this up because it's really interesting. We're at this weird point where everyone's wondering what's happening with Bitcoin. Bitcoin keeps getting resistance at like 100. It's dropping, and then it's getting resistance at 100K. It actually like broke this morning past, but then there's just, because the way trading works for things like Bitcoin, let's be honest, does Bitcoin have fundamentals? Are we looking at how much money Bitcoin made for a company? No, it's really like what's the next person going to pay for it is the price. And that's how store of value works. Does gold do something? No, it's like, what can I sell it for? What will someone buy it for right now is really, that's how store of value mechanics work. Now, Bitcoin, like there's this thing around 100K where people are like, they put all these buy orders in at 100K because they're like, if it ever drops 100K again, I'm going to buy up because it's my last chance maybe to buy it at 100K. And there's these like huge buy walls, and then people just mentally, emotionally are wrapped around that number. Now, Bitcoin's kind of doing this thing, but the cool thing now, all of a sudden, some alts are really starting to do well. Can you show the all-time log of this chart?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's confusing.
Can you show the 1 year? So this is like interesting, right? This is a project that's pretty old. They started before us. They started in 2017. They've got a really famous cryptographer like Stan on their team. This guy's Zuko. But what are they doing that people like? Privacy. It's privacy. And people realize how important privacy is. And I think I just wanted to say, like, it's also nice, you look at the markets, like markets are markets. If they're just easy to predict, like, oh, everything's going to go and everything's going to go up, then that doesn't, they don't work that way. They're hard to predict. And it's just, I like seeing this too, because this is an older project that stayed in the game and kept building and stayed true to their mission. And they kept going. I think they had a big, partnership or integration with Solana that really helped them recently. Mm-hmm. But, privacy is hot. Sometimes you're just too early. And I think things like privacy and like incredibly scalable AI payments are the next two like big pushes I get pretty excited about. But Stan, do you know much about Zcash, like in their?
Yeah, I think I'm actually, there's also another kind of clone of Zcash, Monero, with pretty much like a similar idea that your payments are private. You're losing a little bit of usability because you have more cryptographic keys to use, to maintain. It's kind of, the system is not like MetaMask, it's a little harder, but you have anonymous payments. And definitely, it's there are some cases where people really use it, and now I think people are starting to appreciate privacy. So what I would say is that with all of this X402, there will be a threshold after which the market will actually go really excited about X402, because what we definitely do have, now lots of transaction volume increasing, right? If you look at how much X402 is used, you see this really at some point the volume of transactions will go high so much that it will actually add optimism to the market. Essentially, it's very like definition of like down market. Usually, I mean, I used to like in my previous life, I used to trade biotech stocks, and it's usually the hardest thing is to wait, and that's why like guys like Warren Buffett were able to make so much money, because if you don't really care about money at all, then you're a perfect trader. That's what makes Warren Buffett a perfect trader, because his psychology is great. But usually when the market goes down, first there is this point where everyone is upset and unhappy, and people are not really like things. But that's not the bottom of the market. So the bottom is that when things become so bad that people lose interest. So they move from being like, oh, this thing went being actually high emotion, they move to accepting that this thing will never go up, and they become disinterested.
Yeah, and then they capitulate.
And they capitulate. So the capitulation is not being angry. Capitulate. When you capitulate, you become disinterested. You don't watch it anymore. And then at this moment, actually, that's the moment for. So that usually always happens. It starts going up at the moment where you don't believe at all it can happen. So and the same when it goes up, at some point you can't believe that it can go down. So this human psychology very funny. The moment where you're the least even considering it going up, it starts going up.
Yeah, right.
That's
you can't predict it. If you can predict it, it's market somewhere.
That's why, that's human psychology, and I think we actually, I mean, with X402, we definitely, we have the industry of going up. So we have the emotion of the industry is already up. But there's a disconnect between what people in the industry understand and like bigger community. So that once it's translates, the excitement needs to translate. But my feeling it will, because it's not a fake technology, X402. And privacy also is not fake. It's something real. It needed.
Yeah. So you like looking at the psychology too, like Bitcoin is so interesting. So it like held at 100K, you can see, and like, or just under it, and it's back, but it's pan out a little bit. Let's do like maybe a year.
Back over here.
Okay. And so you can see it's like for Bitcoin, this is kind of interesting because I mean, a year ago, Bitcoin was at almost the exact same price. Okay. This is not a Bitcoin looking chart. Now pan out. Let's look at like longer all time. Like Bitcoin's not flat. And so we've had this weird kind of run. And anyways, I think like people are going to get surprised, like Stan said, one way or another. I'm pretty optimistic, but it's like, it's interesting how it's when people get the most scared, but still interested is usually when things happen. Because when they're scared and disinterested, it's the bad time. So
it is like that phrase, right? Just zoom out. And it's interesting. You can actually put it on so many different aspects of even like life, right? Like this moment in time might be really, really bad, right? And you might be feeling really, really down or something. But if you take away that one day or that 1 hour and zoom out and look at your week and your month and your year and your 5 years, and you can see that it isn't as bad as it feels like right now in the moment, right? You know, you can look at Bitcoin and you're like, oh my God, like what is this? 24 hours, like this is horrific. The 1 week, oh my, that's even worse. And then it's like the 1 month, a little bit better. Then the 1 year, you're like, oh, okay, well, we're up. And then you go for all time and you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Like,
and one interesting theory too on Bitcoin price movement I heard, because everyone's trying to figure out the market right now. It's and that's what I like, because it used to be like, we had this similar cycle 2 times in a row. You run a playbook, you do A, B, and C, and then you make a lot of money. And then everyone now has that playbook. But when everyone does the same thing, guess what? You'd get average results. The way you win is having an asymmetric approach to the market. You don't want to be symmetric or you'll get beta or worse. And so one guy's theory was that went pretty viral this last week was that Bitcoin is in a post-IPO moment. most IPOs for the first year have this chop. And if you look at like, and a dip, and if you look at like, you look at the Facebook stock, you look at lots of these, and they have this thing, look at Coinbase. There's always this like point, because guess what? You have sellers, you have people that held Bitcoin from $100, 100 cents, 50 cents, that you see all these old wallets getting liquidity and at huge amounts. Like Mike Novogratz said that Galaxy helped somebody implement an $8 billion liquidation, like sale of Bitcoin over some period of time. So they maximize, if you try to sell 8 billion in one day, the price goes to zero. So they strategically sold it for them. And then they announced it like, oh, we look at how great we did. They're a public company. They want to show they're making money. But like that's happening now. But there's also more people coming in and buying. And so I think, again, to Stan's point, we're not at a point in the market where when these things go down, it's because like SBF tanked the whole industry with leverage and like, and Terra went from X, just like when you had gazillions of dollars disappearing overnight and people losing their net worth, like that'll crush an industry. But we don't have that at all. We just have like weird market times and everyone's so worried about what Jerome Powell says at the Fed and, what's going to happen with tariffs or government shutdown. And those things are just kind of like, like that's when you're in the emotional tight zone and not that like longer zone, which is, it's an interesting time.
Yeah, and it's also like a question for me, which I can't I was thinking how I can't really answer, but it's interesting, why don't governments buy Bitcoin? At some point, it's clear it's going to happen, right? There will be, governments are usually the slowest, the kind of the last adopters of anything, right? Any technology the government adopts at the last. So at some point, they have gold. A typical country has some gold reserves. They hold US dollar treasuries. They hold a little bit like euro maybe nowadays, like Japanese yen. That's how governments, basically it's like if whatever, they need to have reserve if the war happens or whatever, something, the government needs to have something. So at some point, they will start buying. And there are two questions which I have. One question is that when is it going to happen? And another, when they start it, they may actually do it not announce it. So, but then it's kind of hard for the government. I think maybe central banks can do this, buy something.
Yeah. Well, the U.S. announced the ability. David Sachs, who Stan and I know, through his work with his venture firm before, but he pushed an initiative forward so that the Treasury can now retain all Bitcoin it acquires through normal means. They don't have to sell it anymore. Well, they still aren't able to, from my understanding, aggressively buy it in some straightforward way. But here's a crazy conspiracy theory, okay? I think people like these, right? Here's a conspiracy theory. What's happening with the current Bitcoin market is all manipulation for whales trying to, i.e. governments, trying to buy up while they still can. Because then once it's announced that if you hear that like these 5 countries have X amount of Bitcoin, and then everyone else has to buy or they're not on the global playing field in the reserve, you're behind, you're buying it way less. So they are in a bit of an arms race because if, a company could triple or quadruple its treasury by intelligently buying Bitcoin. Even a big country like the US.
Yeah, if a country like the US, if US Treasury could actually in a secret way accumulate some Bitcoin, and if they announce it, you would understand, it would be crazy for so they cannot just start say they're buying it because
then everyone's going to front run it, right? And David Sachs is a very smart guy. There's smart people in the administration that are like, if we're going to go buy this much, we're not going to tell everyone, or just if I knew that the government was going to buy X amount of dollars, I'd go buy a bunch of Bitcoin right before. Why not, right?
Yeah, front running governments. It sounds like a one-way ticket to prison, if I'm being brutally honest.
But it's like
public information.
But if you guys think about this, I think the governments used to have gold reserves, but at some point they started also buying US dollar. This already happened. This kind of it used to be that the governments would just hold gold, and suddenly the buying up US dollar was also like a new idea for them. But then kind of they started, and now more like, most of the reserves is held for the US dollar. So it's interesting. It's just interesting for me how it's going to happen, because it's kind of a game theory. The moment someone does it, the price goes up. Yeah. So you need to do it like secretly, but how you do it, it's really interesting. We're not there yet, but definitely there will be a moment where this is going to start.
So here's an interesting thing, a Bitcoin stat, and I know we're getting over on time, but Bitcoin's volume in the last 24 hours is up 50%. That's huge.
50?
Up 52%. So that shows you interest, right? That's interest. And it's like, and here's the thing, a couple of weeks ago, like volumes across the board, especially alts, were like so low, which is a sign of lack of interest. But this is for something that is worth $2 trillion volume to go up 50% is massive. And 90 billion in volume in the last 24 hours. That's kind of it's a cool metric.
Let's see.
Well, hey, we're just going to keep building, right? We don't worry about
the process.
Talk about any prices affiliated with this project. We talk about market stuff, but we're heads down and build, right, Stan?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we're doing.
Let's see what the future holds.
Remember, to Jack's point, we cannot and are not allowed to talk about it. So you can tag us. It don't mean we're never going to reply.
But we got to follow the rules.
President Trump talks about prices.
Focus on utility on building. That's what we're going to do.
But you've never seen him talk about the World Liberty Token.
Yeah, that's true.
He's technically following the rules.
Yeah,
guys, been fun. I'm still upset we haven't spoken about aliens.
Yeah, we never get to aliens.
Yeah. Okay. So should we do it?
Yeah, I mean, let's
do it. About aliens.
You want to stay talk about aliens?
Yeah. Everyone's gonna have to wait, and we'll do it earlier in the show because this is like the people are the ones that stuck through for a whole hour. How about that? Give somebody something to wait on. Maybe not with Mike Maples.
Yeah, probably.
I didn't sign up for this.
Bro just jumps in and we start talking about aliens. Oh, that'll be amazing. Yeah, we'll save it for the following week.
Always the highlight of my week, I gotta say. Thank you.
Pleasure as always, gentlemen. Anything further before we sign things off?
No. Next, Mike Maples is going to be great, I think. I'm looking forward. And after Michael Maples, I think we're going to see like machine pay in action, not just like diagrams, but the real thing.
Love it. Love it. And we'll also talk about like the record-setting pace Stan has been building. Like this.
Yeah, using AI.
Building so fast.
And all of the AI guys.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Actually, I mean, I asked really quick, guys, I basically whatever was coded, I went back to AI and I basically like pushed all of the source that I built, and it asked how much time would it take to build this, and it said 9 months. But I built it in like 3 weeks. But the AI says it would take, like 9 months for planning and like team, but there was no team. There was no planning. It was just me and AI. And like, you just see how much crazy the speed up is, like 9 months versus 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because there's no like management. There's no people.
Well, Stan, I think a lot of that's a credit to you. You're pretty fast, and, to say you're smart is a gross understatement. So I think it's like, you with AI, how long without AI would have it taken you to build this thing you built in 3 weeks?
Yeah, I'm not like embracing it, and I can tell you guys, there's nothing scary that I've learned about it. So I mean,
how long would it have taken you? 9 months? Did you do 3 weeks of work? 9 months of work in 3 weeks? You think? What do you think if you had no AI?
I wouldn't be able to do it. That's all AI, because I mean, another great interesting thing.
It's not even the time, you just wouldn't be able to do it because you
absolutely
wouldn't have all that knowledge available to like do it in any efficient way, right?
Absolutely, it's impossible because so you essentially gonna see startups. Actually, there's like A16Z. I read this article about what A16Z is predicting. You're gonna have basically billion-dollar companies built by a single person plus AI. That's what A16Z says. Mm-hmm. And it's actually looks pretty possible. And also, it actually removes all of the headache. So when you program together this AI, it's kind of easy. It's like driving a car with like automatic transmission, and so you don't really have to like switch gears or like it's nice, way nicer. The feeling is nice, but it's huge. I think it's.
All right.
So
Well,
I encourage everyone, guys.
So 2 weeks, we'll see it. We'll get a full demo. We'll crush it. Okay.
Yes.
And aliens.
And aliens and machine pay. That's
Machine
gonna
pay
be
and aliens.
full front and center. Aliens and machine pay. Come.
The frontier of innovation and technology, ladies and gentlemen. Machine pay and aliens. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time. And thank you to everyone for sticking by with us for a little over an hour, hanging out, talking some stuff, and having some fun. We will see you again next Wednesday, the normal time, the normal day with Mr. Mike Maples. And we will see you then. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.